What if I told you that right now, the absolute smartest real estate investment you could make in a coastal Florida, it isn't a traditional concrete blockhouse. It's actually a home with wheels.
Yeah, which sounds completely backwards, I know, but it's true.
It really does. I mean, if you're listening to this and you've been looking at your savings account lately, feeling that sheer anxiety of inflation and just watching median home prices completely sprint away from you, you're definitely not alone.
Oh, absolutely not alone.
Right. You're probably feeling utterly priced out of the conventional housing market and wondering if the whole dream of owning anything is just, well, dead. So today's deep dive is for you. We are going to decode a massive counterintuitive shift happening right now along the Gulf Coast.
And it is a profound behavioral shift. We are observing a complete rewiring of how younger, first-time buyers are approaching real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, they are moving away from traditional subdivisions entirely.
Yeah.
And they're utilizing manufactured housing, mobile homes, not as a last resort, but as a highly calculated, deliberate wealth-building strategy.
Which is just wild to think about. So to really get into the mechanics of this, we are grounding our conversation in some fascinating March 2026 intelligence from a local real estate group called Sell House Fast Cash Bradenton.
Right, their recent insights.
Exactly. The report is titled Affordable Floridi Living, and it provides this incredible ground-level view of what is actually happening in Manatee County. But before we get into the mobile homes themselves, we really have to understand the sheer pressure of the current market. Like, why are buyers suddenly abandoning the traditional single-family home search?
Well, you really have to look at the macroeconomic squeeze. Over the last 5 years or so, out-of-state migration to the Sunshine State just hit these unprecedented levels.
Just everyone flocking down there.
Right. And you combine that incredible demand with the interest rate fluctuations we've seen, and you create an extreme inventory bottleneck.
Because nobody wants to sell, right?
Exactly. People who bought traditional homes years ago at, 3% interest rates, they simply refuse to sell and lose that rate. So the inventory of available traditional homes tightens up, and that scarcity naturally drives the median purchase price straight through the roof.
Which just leaves the first-time buyer completely stranded. I mean, you want to establish roots, but your only real option is to rent. And renting right now, it feels like running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up.
Yeah, a treadmill you can't get off of.
Right, because every 12 months, the lease renewal hits, the rent spikes, and any money you actually manage to save for a traditional down payment is instantly devoured by your landlord. To me, the traditional single-family coastal home market right now, it's like this exclusive nightclub where the cover charge just keeps doubling every single hour.
That's a great way to put it.
And so these smart buyers, they're exhausted, and they're just looking for the VIP side door. But I do want to push back on this just a little bit. Aren't mobile homes traditionally viewed as just like temporary accommodations, the place you endure while you save up for the real house?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the demographic is shifting. It's skewing much younger now. And this demographic is making a conscious redefinition of what it means to own a piece of Florida.
Okay.
They're looking at the board, realizing the game is completely rigged against them, and deciding to play a different game entirely. They're refusing to remain trapped in that perpetual rental cycle. So moving into a manufactured home community offers them immediate relief from those exorbitant rental rates.
And gives them a way out?
Exactly. It's a pragmatic pivot away from conventional subdivisions to find that immediate relief.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if this is truly a strategic entry point, the math has to definitively beat the rental market. I mean, a cheaper monthly payment is great, but freeing up capital doesn't magically create long-term wealth, right?
Well, it does if you deploy correctly. Let's look at the math behind this micro footprint. First of all, a mobile home requires a tiny fraction of a traditional down payment.
Right.
But the real magic happens month to month. Even when you factor in the lot rent, or the HOA fees, the monthly payments consistently fall well below the average rent for a standard two-bedroom apartment in Bradenton.
Wow, even with the lot rent included.
Exactly. And the maintenance is predictably lower, too. A smaller footprint means, cheaper roof replacements, lower HVAC repair costs.
Because you aren't cooling 3,000 square feet in the Florida summer.
Precisely. The utility bills are drastically reduced. Plus, newer homes are actually built to really rigorous federal HUD standards for energy efficiency.
Okay, so they have all this extra cash at the end of the month. How does that translate into wealth?
So when a primary residence stops acting as a financial sinkhole, that surplus capital can be redirected. And that's exactly what these younger buyers are doing. They're taking that monthly surplus and investing it into high-yield investments, padding their retirement savings, or honestly, simply affording to actually enjoy the robust Southwest Florida lifestyle.
So they aren't just house poor, they actually have liquid cash.
Right. If you invest that surplus consistently, the compounding interest on those liquid investments frequently outpaces the slow, interest-heavy equity build of a traditional $500,000 starter home.
That makes total sense. You're buying financial liquidity. But, and this is but we have to talk about the physical structure itself because people hear mobile home and they instantly picture something flimsy. And we are talking about coastal Florida here, the Florida Fury.
Ah, right. The hurricanes.
Yeah. If you are a buyer looking at this, hurricane readiness is totally non-negotiable.
It is absolutely critical. Structural due diligence is the armor protecting this investment. You must verify the home's wind zone standards. A home placed near the coast in Manatee County simply has to be engineered to a higher wind load capacity than 150 miles inland.
Okay, so the wind zone rating is one thing, but what about keeping the house on the ground?
Right, the tie-down systems. You have to verify those are strictly up to code.
Let's get into the mechanics of that for a second, because a traditional block home just uses its massive weight to stay put. How does a manufactured home actually survive a Category 3 storm?
It comes down to resisting aerodynamic uplift. During a hurricane, high winds pass over the structure and create a vacuum effect. It literally tries to suck the house upward off the ground.
That is terrifying.
It is. So tie-downs are these heavy-duty galvanized steel straps that physically wrap over the home's steel chassis. And then those straps are attached to ground anchors, which are essentially giant steel augers driven deep, deep into the soil.
Oh.
Yeah, so when installed correctly, this system transfers those extreme aerodynamic lift forces directly into the earth, keeping the whole structure completely stabilized.
So you're mechanically anchoring it to the geology. That's intense. And the report from Sell House Fast Cash Bradenton also notes that if you are buying an older model, you cannot just use a regular home inspector.
No, absolutely not. You need a specialist. Older models require rigorous inspections for things like moisture and the specialized subflooring or compromised plumbing. But the absolute biggest red flag in older models is aluminum wiring.
Aluminum wiring. Why is that such a hazard? Isn't metal just metal?
Not when it comes to electricity. It has to do with the coefficient of thermal expansion. Aluminum expands significantly more than copper when electrical current runs through it and heats it up.
Okay.
And when the current stops, it cools and contracts.
Yeah.
Over years of doing this, that constant expanding and contracting literally wiggles the wire loose from its terminal screws inside your outlets and switches.
Oh, so it creates a gap.
A microscopic gap, yes. And electricity will try to jump that gap, which creates an arc. That electrical arcing generates intense heat, melts the plastic insulation, and eventually starts a fire right inside the wall.
Wow. That is a massive insurance nightmare.
It is. Any buyer looking at an older unit must ensure that wiring has been completely mitigated.
All right, so you check the tie downs, you verify the wind zones, you get an expert to clear the wiring, you've handled the physical structure. But there is a whole secondary layer of risk here, which is the paperwork, the community itself.
Yes. The prospectus of the park must be reviewed just as rigorously. You need to look at pet rules, age restrictions since many are 55 and older, and crucially, the historical lot rent increases.
Right, because if you own the home but rent the land, you're vulnerable. I like to think of it this way. Buying a mobile home on rented land via chattel loan, which we'll get to in a second, it's a bit like buying a luxury car but parking it in a private garage where the landlord controls the daily rate.
That is highly accurate. You own the asset, but you don't control the ground it sits on.
Exactly. And if they double the rate, you're stuck because moving these things is incredibly expensive.
This raises an important question about financing, really. Understanding the difference between a deeded parcel and a park management lease is the ultimate key to avoiding unpleasant financial surprises down the road.
Walk us through those financing differences, because it's not like a normal mortgage, is it?
Not if you don't own the land. If you do own the land, a deeded parcel lender's treated as real property. You can get a traditional or FHA mortgage, you build better equity, but your upfront cost is much higher because you're buying Florida coastal land.
Right. But these younger buyers are usually leasing the land to keep that upfront cost low.
Exactly. And when you lease the land, lenders do not view the home as real estate. They view it as personal property. So you require what's called a chattel loan.
A chattel loan, that sounds so old school.
It does, but it functions just like a personal property loan you'd get for an RV or a boat. Because the lender's collateral is technically movable, the risk is higher. So chattel loans often have higher interest rates and shorter terms than traditional mortgages.
Wait, if the interest rates are higher, doesn't that defeat the whole financial strategy we just talked about?
Not necessarily. It's about the absolute dollar amount versus the percentage rate. A slightly higher rate on a $70,000 chattel loan still results in vastly less total interest paid than a standard rate on a $500,000 mortgage.
Ah, okay. The total debt load is just so much smaller.
Right. But you still have to be incredibly careful with that park prospectus to ensure the lot rent doesn't suddenly spike and eat up your savings.
So we've covered the intense inspections, the hurricane tie-downs, the arcing wires, the chattel loans, the lot rent. It sounds exhausting. Despite all these hurdles, what makes buyers actually pull the trigger and stay?
Well, it comes down to the immediate lifestyle upgrade. The geography of Bradenton is just perfectly situated. It sits right between the cultural hub of Tampa Bay and the pristine shores of Anna Maria Island.
It really is a beautiful area.
It is. You are near the Bradenton Riverwalk, Robinson Preserve, top-tier medical facilities. And the communities themselves offer high-end amenities that these younger buyers could never afford in a traditional subdivision.
Right, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The absolute absurdity of gaining access to a private boat ramp, heated pools, clubhouses, fitness centers, tennis courts, all without carrying the crushing weight of a massive 30-year mortgage.
It's an incredible lifestyle dividend. You are living a resort lifestyle on a starter home budget.
But surely these places depreciate, right? That's the common wisdom. If you want to move out in 5 years, are you just taking a huge loss?
The article actually tackles this depreciation myth head-on. Because geographic demand to live near the coast is so intense and traditional housing is so inaccessible, well-maintained homes in high-demand coastal areas actually hold their value and even appreciate.
Wait, really? They appreciate?
Yes, especially if buyers force that appreciation with strategic upgrades. Exterior curb appeal, new flooring, modern kitchen fixtures. Because the square footage is small, these upgrades are relatively cheap, but they significantly boost the resale value.
That makes a lot of sense. But eventually, a micro footprint has to feel pretty small, right? Like if you want to start a family, what happens then?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the stepping stone concept. This isn't necessarily a forever home. It is a financial vehicle.
Okay.
By understanding the local market, buyers can use this asset to build wealth for 5 or 10 years. And then, when they're ready to upgrade, they liquidate.
And that's where groups like Sell House Fast Cash Bradenton come in, right? Because they specifically aid in this exit strategy.
Exactly. They provide frictionless liquidations for those ready to upgrade. You bypass the drawn-out traditional listings, the months of showings, the buyers whose chattel loans fall through. You liquidate efficiently, and you roll your accumulated equity into a traditional home later.
So what does this all mean? If you take a step back and look at everything we've discussed today, this deep dive really transforms the traditional view of manufactured housing. It is no longer this reluctant compromise or a last resort.
Not at all.
It is a clever, highly calculated financial maneuver. You bypass the impossible barrier to entry, you secure the coastal lifestyle, and you use the monthly savings to build real, liquid wealth. Provided, of course, that you do your structural and contractual due diligence.
Yes, the due diligence is everything. But I'll leave you with this final thought. Think about the massive, sprawling subdivision models that have dominated Florida development for decades.
Right, the endless concrete blocks.
Exactly. If these younger demographics successfully normalize mobile homes as primary wealth-building starter assets, if they prove this micro-footprint model works, how might that force city planners and traditional developers to radically rethink their rigid zoning laws and the future of community building?
Wow. That is a fascinating question. If the buyers change the rules of the game, the people building the board are going to have to adapt. It just shows you that the coastal dream isn't dead at all. The math has just evolved. And honestly, it might be a whole lot smarter now. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the conventional wisdom, keep looking for those strategic side doors, and we will catch you on the next one.